Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show, Literally Literary Theories, where me, your host, Nimitha Antilas, is going to take you on a little adventure and explore some literary theories. On today's episode, we're on set of Pleasantville, where we'll be seeing how the iconic literary theory of psychoanalysis connects to this iconic film. Thank you for joining us, but before we get started, let's remind you what the show is all about. Psychoanalysis is a fascinating way to interpret films and literature by looking beneath the surface at what's really going on in a character's mind. And we have none other than Sigmund Freud to thank for this theory, the guy who brought us terms like the id, ego, and superego. Well, he's the founder of psychoanalysis, and his work forever changed how we understand human behavior. Freud believed that our actions and our choices are often driven by an unconscious desire, things we're not even aware of. And he came up with the idea that our minds are made up of three parts: the id, which is our raw, instinctual self, the ego, which tries to balance reality and desire, and the superego, which represents our moral compass. Here's where Pleasantville comes in. The story is full of characters who are out repressing their desires, following the rules of a perfect society. But as they awaken to their true selves, the town, just like their minds, bursts into colors. That's the classic Freud right there, the journey from repression to self-discovery. Now let's take Freud's theory to the next level by chatting with the cast and seeing how they brought these complex characters to life. Stick around because things are about to get colorful. Today's a very special episode as we seek to explore and answer the question of how, in Gary Ross's film, Pleasantville, are the Freudian concepts of the unconscious, sexual awakening, and also the life drive theory are represented through the characters of Jennifer, Betty, and David. Let's see who on set we can find. I think I see Jennifer. Come on, let's see if she's free. I'm excited. Hi! My name is Nimitha and I'm from the Literally Literary Theory channel. And if you have some time, I'd love to talk to you about your character Jennifer and psychoanalyze her unconscious with you.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so cool. I'd love to help.
Oh, thank you. Great. So Jennifer is a very deep character. I mean, her character alone is driven a lot by her unconscious, well, specifically her id, ego, and superego. Now, I personally think, for example, at the beginning of the movie, she's very id-driven. Would you agree?
Id? The unconscious? Do you mind explaining these terms?
Of course. Well, the unconscious mind is a dormant part of the mind that works without the individual's knowledge. It can be separated into three deeper categories: id, ego, and superego. The id specifically is a psychological reservoir of our instincts and our libido, or sexual energy, desire for power, for sex, for amusement without an eye to consequences. Id consists largely of those desires regulated or forbidden by social convention.
Oh yes, that is definitely my character for sure. In the beginning, Jennifer is all about partying, popularity, and casual dating. She's more focused on the now, instant pleasure, nothing long term.
Exactly. For example, there's that one scene where Jennifer's about to go on a date with Mark.
Oh my gosh, yeah! That scene really shows her id-driven self. She doesn't care about anything at all but the thrill she's getting from the date. Her main priority is immediate gratification, which is fulfilled by the immediate desire from the date. No thoughts of consequences or deeper meanings at all.
I think the viewers can agree with me when I say this, but I personally find Jennifer's arc so interesting. I mean, at the beginning of the film, as you said, she's all about that instant gratification. But once her and her brother get transported to Pleasantville, everything changes.
Exactly. As we see, she's still her fully id-driven self. She even starts to take interest in the jock, Skip.
But as the movie progresses, she does reject that shallow relationship with him. This marks the beginning of Jennifer's shift away from her id-driven behavior. Instead of focusing on shallow relationships, she starts seeking something more meaningful.
It's 6:30?
So?
We were gonna... You know.
Oh, I can't.
Why not?
I'm busy.
With what?
I'm I'm studying.
And that change is symbolized perfectly when Jennifer does something completely unexpected.
She picks up a book. Yes, something completely unheard of in the Pleasantville world, and she does this because she craves a deeper meaning of knowledge beyond the surface level life she knew.
This act shows that she's embracing change and growth, and it contributes to her own personal transformation. Jennifer's decision to read a book is a metaphorical act that represents the beginning of her transformation and the broader transformation of the town. As Jennifer embraces knowledge, change, and individuality, the once perfect world of Pleasantville begins to shift as well.
Yeah, and when you think about where she started, someone who only cared about appearances, instant pleasure, it's a complete contrast. Now, she's more self-aware, more fulfilled, and definitely grown past her old self.
This is why I find Jennifer's character development so powerful. I mean, she shows that true fulfillment comes from knowledge, it comes from embracing change, and it also comes from self-development and self-discovery. See, now Jennifer also proved this when she decided to stay in Pleasantville instead of going back to her real hometown.
Of course, I can't believe that Jennifer is the same girl who wanted to help the townspeople break free of some sort of chokehold they were in.
The repressive feelings that the citizens felt that led to the sexual awakening of multiple. But anyway, that topic's reserved for someone else.
Oh, shucks.
It's okay. But thank you so much, Beatrice, for taking the time to talk to us about this amazing theory and diving deep into her unconscious mind.
Of course, this was a lot of fun. I'm so glad I got to be a part of it.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. I'm having a great time. I really hope I see Betty. Guys, I see Betty right over there. Let's see if she has some time. Come on. Hey, Julie. Hi. I was just wondering if you have some time. My name is Melissa. I'm from the Literary Theory channel, and I would love to psychoanalyze your character Betty on how her identity develops around her sexual awakening.
Of course, I'd love to.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm a big fan. Can we talk firstly about Betty herself? Can you describe her character to me?
Betty is someone who's been living in this picture-perfect world for so long, she doesn't even realize she's unhappy. Everything she does is about appearances. She's the ideal wife, the ideal mother, but it's like she's playing a role bestowed upon her by society.
Yes, it's like she has a script, but it's one written by society. They go hand in hand.
Right, and it's about how her family, it's not just about how her family sees her, but how she sees herself. Her whole identity is wrapped up around being this ideal housewife.
Which makes sense considering the time period, I guess. Her character embodies the idealized image of a perfect, wholesome mother and homemaker, common in the 1950s television where gender roles are traditional. Women are homemakers and men work outside the home.
Yeah, it's exhausting though. You can feel it within her.
Absolutely. And it's crazy how much of that comes from repression.
Repression?
Yes. Betty has to suppress her desires, her wants, her needs, all because they don't fit into the society where she's been placed into, which is Pleasantville. However, it's also very fascinating to think about how desires and sexuality were seen as taboo. Freud felt very strongly about this. He believed our sexuality is a part and parcel of our identity and thus relates to our capacity to feel pleasure in ways that are not generally considered sexual.
So, when she represses those longings, it affects more than just her romantic feelings?
Yes, it shapes her entire identity.
And this is tied in with superego, right?
Yes, you've done your homework.
Of course I did. Saying Betty isn't just about looking the part.
Of course. The superego often implies feeling guilty when we shouldn't. Feeling guilty only because we are socially programmed, usually through the family, to feel so.
So everything she's feeling and everything she wants gets pushed down because it doesn't fit the perfect template of a housewife or a mom.
Yes, and that's where repression comes in. It's not just about ignoring her desires, but Betty's been doing that for so long. She's pushed it so far deep that not even she knows what she's missing. And I guess this is sort of represented through the lack of color in her world and in herself as well. I mean, she's not the only one that's been forced to repress her desires. Everyone else in their world too. Everyone in Pleasantville. And I guess that shows their lack of individuality.
Of course, even through all the shame surrounding desires and sexual needs, Betty still allows herself to have that awakening in the bathroom scene.
The bathroom scene.
Yes, that scene where she allows herself to finally feel pleasure, not just for anyone else, just herself. She starts by drawing a bath, but it's more than just about getting clean. You can feel the tension in her. It's like she knows she's about to cross the line, go beyond the rules of Pleasantville, but she can't hold it back anymore.
And the water holds a special symbolism for something too.
Yes, the water in the scene is being used to symbolize rebirth. Betty is being reborn and letting go of all those suppressed emotions she was once taught to hold in. And her nakedness in that scene, it's not sexual in a physical sense at all. It's about shedding all those repressed emotions, all the shame she's carried for so long.
It's like stripping herself of her societal expectations.
Exactly. It's a moment of pure self-discovery, and what's even more amazing is what happens after her experience. Following her experience, she sees color, a red rose. It's not random. That red rose symbolizes her awakening, her passion, her love, and her desires.
And this all happens when she finally breaks free from the strict Pleasantville rules.
Exactly. The color represents her full liberation, and this is when she starts to feel, really feel, for the first time in her life. And this change continues throughout the story.
Yeah, I mean, her color, she was so vibrant and just so alive.
And more herself. And this is what's so beautiful about Betty's journey. Her transformation isn't just about seeing colors. It's about embracing her individuality.
Exactly. And later on in the film, when she properly becomes full color, it just shows that she finally accepted herself.
Exactly. No more living in the role of being a perfect housewife or a perfect mom. She's being herself.
And that's just the metaphors of all of her scenes that she was in. I mean, the water, the roses, the color, everything. It explains so much more than words could ever.
And eventually, she even starts to show her id. And that's a part of psychoanalysis theory too, isn't it?
It is. I'm surprised you know that. When do you think her id was most indulged in?
Honey, I'm home.
I personally like the scene where Betty stops performing her expected gender roles for George, like greeting him at the door with dinner ready.
I felt like this scene caused a lot of conflict between traditional and progress, especially because Betty decided to never, ever repress her desires ever again. And that's how you sort of know she indulged herself fully in emotional liberation by the end of the movie.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, thank you so much, Julie, for joining us today on the Literally Literary Theory. I had so much fun analyzing your character, Betty, and seeing how she formed her own identity through her sexual liberation.
Thank you so much for having me be a part of this. It was so awesome and so cool to learn more about Betty's character.
Of course. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
So, I really want to find one more character. Let's see if I can maybe find David. Come on. This set is huge, guys. I wonder who we're going to find next. We ended up at the bathrooms. Oh my gosh. That's the actor of David. Let's see if he has some time. Hey, excuse me. Hey.
Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm from the Literally Literary channel. My name's Martha, and if you have some spare time, I'd love to interview you and talk about your character David and psychoanalyze him and talk about how he's the perfect example of the life drive theory.
Yeah, of course, but what's the life drive theory?
Okay, so the life drive theory is a theory created by Sigmund Freud, which talks about how humans are sort of driven towards reproduction and survival, love, and pleasure as well. Kind of like self-fulfillment. See, but it's in contrast to the death drive theory, which talks about, destruction and death and just not good things.
Yeah, I can see how that applies to David, especially at the beginning of the movie. He's obsessed with Pleasantville and loves it so much. He just finds comfort in it for some reason. And that's because of the perfect world that it shows him.
You're already getting the hang of this.
Yeah, so that obsession that he has is showing us how his life drive is suppressed and how it's working from a place of fear as well as control-seeking behavior. So he's kind of just trying to find an escape from reality, avoiding all of those fulfilling experiences, and that escape is Pleasantville.
Yes, and it's kind of like the characters in Pleasantville are sort of manufactured to repress desires and emotions. This can be seen when he watches the show when his mom is fighting with their dad on the phone about the divorce, and he turns up the volume towards the beginning of the film. His fear of change could also be connected to Freud's anxiety concept of how anxiety or core issues are the things developed by the unconscious mind and are aligned with defense mechanisms.
So could his fear of change be connected to his unconscious mind?
Yes, absolutely. It's like when Jennifer and David first transferred into Pleasantville. You know, the world was black and white, and it can represent his repressed psyche. You know, the lack of emotion, the structured world, it's like David's ideal world.
Yeah, so could the way that David was trying to hold on to the rules of Pleasantville, even though Jennifer was trying to mix it all up and show them how the real world was, be connected to his fear of change as well as suppressed life drive?
Yes, I mean, him trying to stop in Jennifer can also represent his repression of his life drive, right? When he experiences, you know, Jennifer trying to bring these different concepts into Pleasantville, he kind of is like, no, you can't do that, no, 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 which represents his fear of change, and also represents how not only is he trying to repress his own life drive, but he's trying to repress other people's life drive in Pleasantville.
However, have you seen this shift in the entire movie following David's interaction with Betty, the red apple?
Incredible pivotal point indeed. Now, this is when David starts to realize that Pleasantville isn't so perfect anymore, especially as the color starts to spread more and more. That red that you see from the apple just isn't any regular color. It is a symbol of his first awakening, emotional awakening.
Yeah, and at the very beginning of this, David is so obsessed with this idea of perfection, and he's even super controlling about it too. But as we know, the colors start to spread around the town, and it becomes divided, and they're trying to choose which way is right to live. So that just forces David to face something that he didn't expect to, which is true and pure human emotion. This isn't just change for the town, but it's change for David's character.
Perfect analysis. And this is when David starts to realize that Pleasantville isn't perfect anymore, and trying to preserve that perfect is not going to be beneficial, you know? It is about living it, and that's when he realized that's what the true intentional goal is. And it's actually really incredible to see how he starts to develop this understanding, and it's interesting to see how he goes towards this emotional awakening. And this is when he starts to encourage others to do the same. And we really see this in his conversation with Betty. She's confused and scared by the changes, but David helps her understand that she doesn't have to be stuck in her role. He encourages her to indulge in her desires. It's as if he was teaching her and himself that being alive means embracing our emotional complexity. David gently but firmly encourages Betty to allow herself to feel and explore her desires. This is where we see David's own life drive, or eros, come fully into play. It's a psychoanalytic sense. David's transformation can be seen as the awakening of his eros, his life drive.
I think that's why Pleasantville resonates with so many people. It's not just about the color, it's about living fully, feeling deeply, and making us realize that we are messy and complex beings. It's just what makes life beautiful.
Thank you so much for that incredible analysis, Eldon. And thank you so much for taking time to be on our channel today.
Of course, and thank you.
As we reach the end of this show, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the Literary Theory channel. And thank you so much for tuning in on today's episode, where we were on the set of Pleasantville, seeking to explore how in Gary Ross's Pleasantville, the Freudian concepts of the unconscious, sexual awakening, and the life drive are represented through the characters of Jennifer, Betty, and David. Thank you so much, and I'm your host, Nympha Antinos, and I'll see you next time.